Hi guys, Ben here from carpfishingguide.com and welcome to this episode. In this episode I'm going to be talking a bit about bait, give you a bit of an introduction to bait and the application of that in carp fishing. As you can see behind me here, I've got a load of bait here which I've got lying around. I've got absolutely tons of it. I've got 4 or 5 big bags of this stuff, so let's get a bit of an airing. Let's kick off with pretty much the mainstay of any carp fisherman is your boilies. These are freezer boilies. You can also get shelf life boilies, which are the ones you'll see generally at most fishing stores that aren't in the freezers. Shelf life boilies can either be air dried or they'll have preservatives in them, whereas the freezer boilies, they will have basically the fresh ingredients in there, and so there's no sort of additives or anything like that, so these are considered to be fresher. You know, better quality bait or anything like that. I'm certainly within the camp that using a fresh boilie is better than using one that's got preservatives or anything like that in it. However, I do have here, these are mainline cell Dumbbell. These are little hookers basically. Cell's a wonderful bait. If you've never smelled it before, it smells like coconut. And the reason behind having a dumbbell is, well, a dumbbell looks almost like a sort of squished boilie, and the reason why we use them is because they look different. Can't get very sort of aware of round baits and stuff like that, and so using something like a using basically a different shaped boilie can make it look better, basically, or more safe. Sorry. The problem with having them shelf life, and especially what I find with stuff like that, is that they get quite dry. So what I've got here is a load of those cell dumbbells, but they're actually in sort of a liquid. This is a peanut liquid, which it's like a peanut oil basically. And that's just been sitting here, and they're glugging, and they're just soaking up all that peanutty juice, peanut oil, which makes a great sort of hook bait, in my opinion, and something which I kind of try and use a lot. Moving on, still on the boilie range, but these ones are Popups. These are Richworth KG1s. It's kind of like a sort of fishy / fruity smell. Really rate these. These are the what they call the aero pop-ups. Basically they're pop-ups. They sit off the floor and will float. And what you do, you hook them up with something like a pop-up rig, which is weighted at the hook or behind the hook, or something like a KD rig, which actually has a shot on the hair. These ones here are my new favourites. I had an absolutely awesome session on them the other day. These are the Sonobaits pop-ups. This is the refresher smell, which smells like tangerine basically, or it's basically refreshers, the sweets you used to get. To marry those up, actually, I've got here what's the Sonobaits Booster Cloud in the refresher smell as well. Now, there's a number of liquids you can get in baits for carp fishing. This is what's called a Booster Cloud. And basically what it does is it soaks into the baits which you got and just like oozes this sort of cloud of attraction basically around your hook baits. And obviously you can also do it with free offerings. You chuck that in spod mixes, etc. So which is getting quite a lot of publicity recently is this, which is Goo. It's made by Carp, South African company, but Corda are actually sort of distributing this across Europe. This is the corn twist. This is the bait smoke, so this is more for putting onto your baits and letting them soak in. You've also got stuff like power smokes, etc. on there, which do very similar sort of things to like the Booster Cloud as shown you before. Still sticking with liquids. This is something which I rate really highly in sort of colder weather conditions. This is the CC Moore's liquid Bloodworm Extract. This stuff actually has little bits of bloodworm in them, real bloodworm. Bloodworm contains natural amino acids, and it's been proven that carp can actually smell amino acids, and they'll hone in on those sort of things. So definitely something to look at here. I use this in stuff like stick mixes, and I use it in stuff like spod mixing as well, which I do. Keeping on the bloodworm theme, This here is sticky baits, Bloodworm glug. It's a glug which is made out of sort of liquidised sort of bloodworms and stuff like that in there. And this is great to just glug up your bait before you throw it out into the lake. Again, this is actually PVA friendly, as is the goo and the power smoke. And so what you can do is, if you've got like a ready-made rig, you can actually just sit it in there waiting to go before you actually throw it out. And the longer that glug stays in there, the better. Moving on, well, we can't talk bait without talking hemp. This is Cotswold's prepared hemp and tiger nuts. This stuff absolutely awesome. Hemp is like the classic carp catcher, basically. Lots of small hemp seeds. It's got natural oils. It's and basically what it does is it keeps carp just rooting around in it for hours, basically. So definitely something to look at here. As I say, this has got tiger nuts in it, and so I've actually even got a bag here of tiger nuts. You can normally get these in liquids or anything like this. Is just how Cotswold do them, in a bag. So you can imagine if you do something like say hemp seeds with tiger nuts, a bit of ground bait, maybe some pellets, which we'll look at in a second, and with a tiger nut on the hair, well, they're not going to know what they get caught on for a start. But that's a huge like benefit to yourself, and as I say, that is one definitely to look out for. Another thing to look at and always appreciate is these things. This is plastic bait. Now plastics is something which I haven't used a hell of a lot of, to be honest with you, but I'm starting to see how these things can actually work. I use a lot of stuff like critically balanced baits now, especially with the lakes I'm fishing at the moment. They can be quite silty, or generally there's a lot of debris on the bottom, and so I like to try and keep things off sort of from being buried underneath all the debris. By having something like a pop-up or buoyant corn just topping like a boilie, you can actually make that really nice. And it obviously, as you can see, something like that, a white, a pink, a red, a yellow I've got in here, all that sort of plastic buoyant corn. It's a visual attraction as well. Something else which I highly rate for plastics is these doggy biscuits. Basically, they're dog mixers. These dog mixers are not critically balanced. Sorry, they're cocked. And what I mean by cocked is that they will actually sit one way all the time. And this is designed for floater fishing, when you're floating when you're surface fishing. Sorry. And what these do is basically, in my opinion, if you've got like a dog biscuit on a hair, and the hook sitting in the water, that looks, in my opinion, is quite obvious to the carp, and they'll be feeding around it and know that, well, that's a hook on that one, I'm not going to touch it. Whereas if the hook is out of the water on top of the dog biscuit, which these plastics actually enable you to be able to do, it's going to be a lot more inconspicuous, which means you're more likely to get a catch. And that's certainly what I found in my fishing on surface fishing. So that's taking you through pretty much most of what I've got for bait here today with you. As so, it's just an overview. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking you through stuff like my favourite stick mixes, spod mixes. I'm going to be taking you through a bit more about how, for example, in cold weather I prefer to use natural foods, and in warmer weather there's other baits which I prefer to use. So as I say, I hope that's given you a bit of a nice overview. Hope you enjoyed the video. For more tips, tricks, rigs, bait, all sorts of carp tips and tricks, go to my website, www.carpfishingguide.com, and while you're there, don't forget to check out my free e-report on my 20 top tips to help stop you blanking. My name's Ben, hope you enjoyed this video. Tight lines.